Hello, welcome to the Week in Review. I am Mudumbo sitting in for Aded Darami today, and if you're watching the program for the first time, this is where we take 10 or so headline stories and chew them over. I mean, obviously not exhaustively, there wouldn't be time for that, but at least enough to provide some understanding and context to the stories of the week. This week, Terrorism Offences Amendment Bill 2021 was tabled by the Attorney General and Minister of Justice in the National Assembly, seeking to have stiffer penalties for offenders. We will go into some of the clauses they want to amend. And the military top brass are on a nationwide tour of security installations and of meeting leaders. We'll go into what they have been saying, what the CDS, the Chief of Defense Staff, has been saying, given what he had seen and what he had been told during this tour. And President Barrow returns from Ghana, where he had attended the 59th Ordinary Summit of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. When he returned, he was asked a few questions. We'll go into some of his answers. And interestingly, afterwards, he had a visit from our sportsmen and women where he dished out some money. But again, there was a group that refused to go. Today, to help me chew over these things is my colleague, my QTV colleague, our correspondent, Mamadou Lamin Choi. Welcome to the Week in Review.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muj, for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Now, let's get cracking. President Barrow returned from the ECOWAS summit, and he was asked a few questions, as often happens at the airport. Let's just listen to this clip.
At the opening, we had the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, Mohamed Saleh, acknowledging that the voter register in the Gambia is going on smoothly. However, he has raised the issue of the TRRC recommendation, that this is something that the country will really face a challenge. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, it is a challenge. Because listening to all this thing about the TRRC, I think we have a lot of work to do, but we wait for the recommendation. Then my government will sit together. It will dictate what we do next. Basically, I think that is what we'll be going to do. But we want to assure Gambians that definitely the political will is there to make sure that we look at the TRRC and treat it with caution, to make sure that everything is done right. We don't want to make mistakes.
Yes, let me try. Yeah. So he has returned where each country within the community had to present a kind of country report. And it was interesting. We had the economic. There are a few talking points here. The economic mission in the Gambia. So it will be reviewed, and then so that it can move on. It can be extended, as it were, to cover our elections. What do you make of that?
Yes, absolutely. It's quite important that ECOWAS leaders are meeting, and when they meet, usually Gambia emerges as one of the countries that they will talk about in terms of our situation. ECOMIC, as per the report and the interventions that the ECOWAS is planning to make, it's controversial, among the members of the public. But I believe, there needs to be a sustainable measure coming from ECOWAS that at the end of the day will serve the long-term interest, security interests of this country. And that having ECOMIC here, we've had what they're planning to do, the transitioning process, transforming them into a police force, etc. But at the end of the day, what is the most important thing is how much are we able to reform our security within this period? Because ECOMIC is not going to be here forever. So I think that is what the government of the day must concentrate on, not focusing on the extension of the mandate of the ECOMIC, because ultimately one day they will leave, and it is our security that will be left with the mandate. In fact, it is their mandate, but given history, circumstances by history, that ECOMIC is here today. But I think for me, what is the most important thing that the government must do is to use this opportunity to make sure that there are reforms priorities must be given to reform, to the security sector reform, so that at the end of the day, when the economic leaves, there is something that is sustainable.
Absolutely, and one gets the sense, when the sense everybody's talking about it, that the SSR, security sector reform, has been really it's been dragging. But again, others will give the argument that it's really a highly complex and difficult process, and it's got some political implications as well, our peculiar situation. Are you sympathetic to that argument at all?
Yes, that is the argument that people make, but I think 4 years down the line, change must be visible before the eyes of the public. And this is what people are saying. That is the judgment that some people are making. That 4 years, it's a period that we must see some semblance of change, semblance of reforms in our security sector. That is, a gradual process. Security sector reform is a gradual process. It doesn't happen, within that short period of time. But within this period of 4 years, from 2017, when the Barrow administration assumed office to date, change must be visible. These reforms must be visible before the eyes of the public. Are we better today than before? Is our security situation in the country worsening or improving today? I think this is the yardstick that Gambians now can use, to measure our level of progress in terms of security sector reform. What is the essence of security sector reform when crimes appear to be increasing in our country? What is the essence of security sector reform when, some of the practices among our security men, practices of the past we still see? That is why I said it is significant that these reforms are visible before the eyes of the public, and then we can make judgment as to whether the 4 years or 5 years or whatsoever is enough or not.
Absolutely. So far, what we've got is policies and strategies. Yes. Another subject, another topic that came up during the interview, especially, and it actually began in Ghana. The UN Secretary General for West Africa and Sahel, his representative, when he said that for Gambia, perhaps one of our challenges would be recommendations of the TRRC. And then when the president came, he was asked about that. And he said, we have to be cautious. We don't want to make mistakes. How did you read that answer?
Yes, for me, the president was reacting to what was said at the ECOWAS. That this can prove to be, a challenge. But the question here is, to what extent would he, implement the recommendations of the TRRC? What commitment has the government shown so far when it comes to the TRRC process, the transitional justice process in this country? So for me, I think, the president is trying to be diplomatic in his language, in a sense. But ultimately, I'm not able to tell what was in his mind when he said that, but he was being diplomatic, not to preempt the actions that the government would take. Because ultimately, when the report comes, the government will read, the report, the president will read the report, and then from there, out of what he has read, that will go a long way towards informing the decisions that the government will take in terms of the white paper that they will issue. Absolutely,
but these are just recommendations. They are not necessarily binding. So the experience we had with the Janneh recommendations, their report, what he did, this is the fear that when this report is submitted, it will have a similar treatment in that they'll perhaps what they were calling cherry picking, what to implement, what to follow or what not. Do you have any concerns? And how would that aid help the reconciliation process, which is really key here?
Absolutely. That's something that's, what happened when it comes to the Janneh Commission. The president and his government, these are political animals who, at the end of the day, the actions that they will take, in most cases, is informed by their political interest. And that is what we have seen when it comes to the Janneh Commission report, the government cherry picking on what they will implement and what not. And it wouldn't be a surprise to see that. It wouldn't be a surprise to see that when it comes to the TRRC. But I think given the circumstances that happen, human rights violations, the TRRC, has uncovered some of these, human rights violations that happened in the past. The weight of the report, the weight of what the TRRC has uncovered, I think measuring it to the Janneh Commission at the end of the day, you're looking at the international interest that is there, the ICC, we've heard from the ICC current chief prosecutor agreeing to the lead counsel's argument that the Gambia has reached, what they have uncovered has reached the gravity threshold for crimes against humanity. We've seen a lot of international reactions, coming support given to the TRRC, but at the end of the day, whatever action that the government would take in terms of the recommendations will be significant, but we may not, read too much into it, because at the end of the day, these are politicians, and at the end of, and what they will take, the decision that they will take, will be informed by their interests. But at the international level, justice is inescapable at the end of the day.
Interesting times ahead. Thank you very much there, Mahmoud Lamin Choi. Now to our next story. Gambia has been variously described, even in the international press, as a child or sex tourism haven, as it were. So during the week, the Attorney General tabled an amendment bill 2021 on our tourism offences. So let's just take a look at this clip.
The National Assembly completed the consideration stage of the Tourism Offences Amendment Bill 2021, which seeks to amend the 2003 Tourism Offences Act to incorporate a provision related to trafficking and for connected matters.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. There, from the 2003 Tourism Offences Act, what was it? An offender faces a fine of not less than $100,000 and imprisonment for not less than 5 years. Yes, so here, the amendment, what it seeks is that a fine of not less than $100,000 and not exceeding $500,000 in addition to life imprisonment. Stiffer sentences. People have been complaining, the media, journalists have been writing about it. Is that a step in the right direction?
It's a step in the right direction so long as the reform process, is concerned. The previous one, 2003, I think it was also a good one, but to what extent have we implemented it? Implementation of these laws are quite significant. I think the question that we should ask government now is how many people have been prosecuted in that 2003 Act? How many people have been prosecuted? The prosecutions at the end of the day means a lot in terms of the enforcement process of the laws. Bringing in a new law is another thing also, a stiffer penalty coming into place. But I think trafficking, given previous reports, the U.S. State Department, Gambia currently on the
because this amendment bill is particularly related to trafficking.
Trafficking.
Exactly, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the government has not been doing enough when it comes to prosecutions. I think that is what they have to, improve on. It is good to reform laws, but to what extent are these laws implemented will determine how meaningful they are. What changes can they make, to improve the situation in the country, so long as the circumstances surrounding trafficking in persons is concerned in our country.
Absolutely, and you've already touched on it, the U.S. State Department's annual report, I think it is, on trafficking in persons. I think the one I saw the other day was the 2020 report on the Gambia, where we are put on what they call Tier 2 watch list. As it were. So we really haven't fulfilled the criteria to move on to higher rankings, even though we are told that we are making lots of improvement. But still there's a huge problem to tackle in this country when it comes to trafficking child, either for sexual abuse or for free labor. people are trafficked regularly, either within or people from the sub-region bringing in women, children, and abuse them in this country.
Absolutely, it is something that is happening, and going by the U.S. State Department report, in fact, it went further, just to emphasize on the fact that prosecutions really will give the sense of how effective the laws would be. The government, according to the report, reported 15 new investigations, 6 sex trafficking cases, and 9 cases involving forced labor in domestic work in the Middle East, and continued 3 prosecutions from previous reporting periods, which remain ongoing at the end of the reporting period. The government did not initiate any new prosecutions during the reporting period. So that's a huge gap.
This was 2020.
Yes, tier 2 watch list. We still have a long way to go. And it will only be improved, Mr. Mboj, I believe. The government must bring the necessary resources, must gather resources, the capacity. These are people that need to be trained also. The security needs to be trained, in this area. The report also highlights the fact that, the government made some progress in terms of training of personnel, in terms of, making efforts, efforts for prosecutions. But at the end of the day, to what extent would the government do this? To what extent are security personnel trained to do this will be the question. And if we are able to tackle that, if we are able to increase our capacity, increase our efforts towards prosecutions, this will go a long way towards, improving the situation, in the country. I think so.
Thank you very much there, Mamadou Lamin Choi. And to our next story, during the week, the United Nations Population Fund and the Ministry of Gender, Women and Social Welfare opened a shelter. Let's just take a look at this clip.
The services to be provided at this shelter will include health service delivery, psychosocial counseling, legal support if necessary, will also be provided. And we'll also talk to our religious leaders to be coming here once in a while to provide religious counseling to victims and also to perpetrators.
Yes, Troy there. A center to support survivors of gender-based violence. Surely very, very important here. When you look at the statistics, there are a huge, high percentage of women, girls, who are abused. So the center, the Orange Center, fantastic idea, surely. It is quite fantastic. Gender-based violence is a menace in our country here. And the UNFPA coming to support, the process is quite significant. And that center, I think, will go a long way with the facilities that are, put in place. Will go a long way towards, improving the situation in the country. And going back to, the government also, it is the responsibility of the government to ensure that, gender-based violence related matters are addressed. And what infrastructures are put in place by government, it's like, it's good that the UNFPA is coming in, but I think government also needs to complement, that process of improving, infrastructure, of improving, the situation in terms of prosecutions, etc. And that is, I think, that initiative by the UNFPA in collaboration with the government of the Gambia is very important, because women are vulnerable people, and the fact that the number of gender-based violence in the country is increasing really doesn't tell a well. Absolutely, and perhaps here they can also go further in helping all the centers, as it were, giving them some kind of aid, because the other day we spoke to the program officer of the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations, where I was told that they never really receive any help from the government. Most of what they're getting is from the international organizations. But this is it. Opening the Orange Center, absolutely brilliant idea. But again, one has to do a lot more before one begins to grapple with the immensity of the issue, the problem.
that goes, back to what I have said, that the initiative is important, but government support also really will go a long way towards improving the situation in the country. And the situation right now is really not encouraging. As we have said, I watched the viewpoint where a representative from the Victim Center highlighted the fact that they have not been receiving support from government. We have the center here since for more than 3 years now, and they've been operating and they've been relying on international support or the donors. But how much is government also playing its role? It is the role of the government to make sure that these people are protected. It is the role of the government to make sure that initiatives like this are sustainable. Having the facility there is one thing, but how much resources are invested and to provide the material resources, to provide the funding for programs, development of strategies that will improve the situation. I think that is what we should be talking about now.
Absolutely, and that is one part, because the underlying problem really is that men committing these offenses on women. So media, civil society, the awareness programs to change attitudes, because ultimately for it to reduce significantly, or even for us to eradicate it, ultimately will come back to us ordinary citizens and how we deal with these things. So we'll just move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now to our next story. This has been sort of like a running sore, as it were, for a while now. The wastage, the fish, the large quantities of fish being wasted on the shores, as it were, and then when you go to the markets, they're quite expensive, or they're not even available. Let's just take a look at this clip.
The stench is overpowering and disturbing. At breakfast or lunchtime, it is almost impossible to eat in such conditions due to the stench coming from the fish piles. This is not good for our health. We are sick and tired of this and want it removed now.
But this is really what the problem is. One of the problems, isn't it? Listening to that, just that seller, fishmonger, saying that what? When you buy fish, the population cannot benefit from it, because when you buy to distribute at markets, before you reach your destination, it is spoiled. So that chain of storage from the catch, in the water, to the market. Mm-hmm. It's been a huge problem.
It is. I think it's a problem that is also affecting when it comes to the market prices, of fish currently. Gambia, we have the resources, we have the river, and it is quite interesting if you go to Tanja today and these major landing sites, you see, the huge amount of fish, quantity of fish that you see there. Too much. But you ask for the price, or you go to the market to buy pelagic piece of fish, it's expensive. And the question is why? I think, yes. So one factor can be, contributing to this, the fact that we lack cold chained facilities in terms of storage, instead of, processing and transportation for distribution to markets around the country. We lack that. And I think this is where investment can come in. The private sector can invest in it. The government also can invest, in facilities like this. The investment wouldn't concentrate or center at the landing sites only, but markets, around the country. We have the resources. Gambia is blessed with resources. Look at these fruits we have. We have mangoes, we have oranges, but at the end of the day, when you do not have these storage facilities, processing, factories that process this, these products, will contribute towards, the high prices we have at the market, as the case is. But the other problem that is the case now is it is resulting to wastage. One, lack of storage facilities, processing facilities, but the locals on the ground are alleging that it is as a result of overfishing. When we went there before June, late May, the situation wasn't like that. it's like there's an indication, a factor or an indication that will at least a little bit, corroborate the fact that we have a lot of, Senegalese coming from, from their country to fish in our waters. It is legal, going by the reciprocal, fishing agreement between these two countries, which is not bad. But if this is not regulated properly, the situation that we have at, at Tanya is an eyesore, is unsightly, and which needs intervention. I contacted the Ministry of Fisheries. I was the one who was doing the story. I was informed that, in fact, Parliament, has had announced that, summoning the minister to come to the Parliament to answer the questions in relation to that. When I contacted the minister, I understand that the minister had sent a team to find out what was happening. So this is giving a picture of, the lack of information our authorities have when it comes to, their ministries, when it comes to their departments, when it comes to things that are happening on the ground. It's so sad, definitely.
We'll vote for that meeting, for that hearing in the National Assembly. Now to another story, another environmental issue here. The people, certain institutions and the people of Brikama decided to do something about it in the Nyambai forest. Let's just take a look at this.
Where we found these conservationists cleaning the entrance of the forest, which had been used as a dump site. I first caught up with Lamin Jame, chairperson of Together Africa Gambia organization, who began by telling me the idea behind the cleaning exercise.
This clearing, as you can see, the environmental forest, it is so disheartening to see. The place is so dirty and so filthy. And as an organization, in partners with the stakeholders, we feel environment should be everybody's business. So this is why we call the authorities concerned, the local authorities that are within these forests, to see how best we all come together to make sure we keep clean our forests.
Yes, Mahmoud Lamin Choi. So here we have enough to worry about when it comes to deforestation, enough to worry about when it comes to illegal logging, to worry about when it comes to bushfires and the like. But here the particular issue is the dump sites, where we just come and dump our rubbish in places where they are not designated to be that. What do you make of that? And the stories, there are so many stories about these things. What is the underlying difficulty here, I wonder?
I think it's attitude, bad attitude of people. When you have a child, when you train the child from that early stage, that you shouldn't litter in the street. When mature people like us, would litter in the street, would be on board a car, the car is moving, and then you just litter something, in the street. That attitude, I think, it's quite bad. It's like something that is common in the country. It is a common practice that is accepted by the society. Hardly one, condemns you for doing it. That starts from that child, that childhood stage, that formative years of of children. Everything boils down to the attitude people have towards our environment. Lack of sensitization, awareness. Sometimes, you do not need awareness or sensitization to know what is good and wrong as, a mature person. But I think, the deep-seated bad attitude people have towards the environment is contributing to problems like that. And at the end of the day, we are the ones who will, suffer the consequences.
But don't you think that perhaps there are structural problems there? Maybe you do not have many designated places where you can throw your litter. Don't you get that sense that we don't have enough places where it is designated and we can throw our litter there and then the council, somebody would come and collect it?
Yes, I think when it comes to waste management, that forest is close to Birkama.
Yeah.
Birkama, waste management, problems do happen around that area. And if the council also does not do its role properly or effectively, it can lead to things like that. But it's not the solution. It's not the solution. Dumping stuff like that at our forests really, will do more harm than good to our society. When you dump, waste around that area, you are not only doing it against your own environment, but it is going to affect the people, in one way or the other, because the forest contributes, a lot towards, our socio-economic development. And this is a problem. I think authorities, there should be also policing, at the forest. How many of these forests would you go and then see personnel? Go to Senegal. Their forests are highly protected. Their forests are conserved. But which forest would you go and then you will see there might be some personnel there, but is that enough to police, those forests to make sure that things are monitored properly?
Absolutely. You do hear policy analysts tell you that in these things it's really about social policy and implementation, rather than hoping for what they call a kind of magical increase in people's personal virtue. We can't see that happening soon. Thank you very much there, Choi. Now we go on to our next story. The military top brass is on a nationwide tour of security installations and meeting community leaders. Let's just take a look at this clip.
Most of the military installations, if not all, need to be better supported and equipped with better services. Typical examples are the camps in Jongon, Lamenkoto, Sambuya, Fatoto, to name a few.
Yes, Lamin Choi. Yes, apparently this is a regular annual exercise, which is a good thing, to go around to see for yourself and hear from the people, some of the issues they're having to grapple with in fulfilling their work. What do you make of it?
No, it's good. I've been following it, and there are some. It helps the CDS and the team, the top brass, to gather first-hand information of the situation of our personnel in different camps or barracks, etc. And this will help them come up with, strategies, plans, reforms, etc., to improve the living condition of these people, and to make sure that the professionalism aspect of our soldiers or personnel are also looked at. It's a security sector reform process that is going on in this country, and when this is happening, it must also happen simultaneously with addressing the living conditions, the situations of these people, to measure how far we've gone so far. I think it's a good initiative.
Yes, absolutely. But we've also seen during the tour people, soldiers, telling him really the difficulties is the lack of resources and all kinds of shortcomings, as it were. But again, when one puts that in the context of currently the Gambia, heavily indebted, sort of economy, particularly with the COVID-19, with the pandemic, every sector, as it were, is complaining about a lack of resources. What realistically can one expect from government today? What one wonders to do for the army to improve things. It's a huge challenge. You wonder, where would the funds come from?
Yes, it's a problem. It's a problem that is cross-cutting. Different sectors are affected, and the government needs to properly manage, our resources, and evenly somehow distribute them to different sectors, of our economy.
Has to prioritize.
Yes, prioritize. Yes, prioritization is really important, and that will help, the proper management of our resources at the end of the day. COVID-19 heavily hit hard our economy, and as a result, we're seeing some problems. But COVID-19, the advent of COVID-19 really met some conditions that we've been facing in the country here. Gambia is heavily indebted poor country. We are distressed now. It has gone to the point that it is very extreme. And I think, if the resources are not available, what governments do, if the tax base, of our economy is really not, comprehensive or improved upon, we might end up, going for loans and, in most cases, which will increase the burden, the debt burden, and the more the debt burden, increases, Sometimes when you pay with this high interest, very high interest will increase also the suffering of the people.
That's the challenge of the government there. We'll move on to our next story. This is the elections here, the presidential elections here. So the Gambia Press Union organized a dialogue with the IEC and the police and Human Rights Commission to clarify the roles and responsibilities in this electoral process. Just take a look at this clip.
The dialogue will give members of the public the opportunity to know the mandate of key stakeholders with regards to elections and also the opportunity to ask questions on related issues. At a well-attended interface held at the Brikama Wellingara Big Tree, the Alcalo Sambaba welcomed the delegation, saying it is a big opportunity for his people to clear some of their doubts. Some of the concerns raised are about allegations of non-Gambians registering to acquire voters' cards.
Yes, Chai, very important there because a lot of people really might really not know structurally the process, what is going on, which people need to know so that you can have faith in it. You can trust it, which is really very important, for integrity, as it were, which is important for the whole process, a sense of fairness and the like, surely. Good initiative from the GPU.
Absolutely, it's a good initiative, and the GPU, this is among a series of programs that they have implemented so far, so long as the registration process is concerned, engaging, stakeholders to discuss about, issues that are surrounding the registration process. Integrity really matters, because for a free and fair election, there must be integrity from this, from the starting point. The starting point is the registration process, and issues are emerging. But I haven't seen.
For instance, people saying that non-Gambians have been registering, getting voters' cards, which is a huge issue. And there was another one about the mayor of Banjul, whether she's got the constitutional right, as it were, to make attestations for people. So there are few issues around it so far.
Yes, for me, what I will tell the public, so long as that is concerned, especially issue of non-Gambians, one, you cannot intervene in what the IEC is doing. You cannot harass anybody. You cannot be the judge of who is a Gambian and who is not Gambian. When the registration process ends, the IEC will publish the list everywhere in all the registration centers. This list will be pasted, and if you have any objection, you can object. But when I ask the IEC chairman, it's like you're not objecting through the IEC, but it's a matter of litigation. You have to go to the courts for them to determine, whether one is a Gambian or not. Now, to the attestation, it's a problem. We've seen civil society organizations now coming up. The IEC have been, stressing the fact that they have the constitutional mandate to do what they did, so long as the, Banjul is concerned. But now that civil society organizations are coming, now is the right time for problems to be challenged at the courts.
That's it.
If not, when we wait until the election ends,
it will be too late. And right now we understand that Gambia participates, the civil society organization has taken it to court. We'll see what the courts will say regarding that one. So now we move on to our next story. During the week, Sharab Medical Center and Direct Aid, which is a charitable organization, organized a charitable humanitarian event. Let's just take a look at this clip.
Some of these surgeries that we are going to do, like prostate operation with cameras only, there is no cut on the patient. These are very expensive surgeries, very high-class surgeries, but we are going to do it in collaboration with Direct Aid, free of charge for these patients.
Yes, Lamin. This initiative launched in 2017, so they'll select 30 patients. Most of them really cannot afford it, or maybe the surgery required is complicated. So they offer help to this. Remarkable there.
Absolutely.
We should have more people doing that, more organizations.
It is quite remarkable, and surgery is an expensive thing. It's an expensive process that one needs to take. Humanitarian organizations coming and then supporting really is quite important, and more initiatives like this are encouraged. Initiatives that will be meaningful to the lives of people. There are several interventions other people are, making. But when it comes to health, in Gambia, we have a problem, and we encourage people to, to invest or to support to bring about humanitarian support in terms of health-related matters, so that at least the poor or the less privileged will benefit from it.
Absolutely. It seems in many ways in our societies, in many areas, be it education or health, there seems to be a kind of apartheid. Those who can afford it can get certain services, and those who can't really wouldn't. So for a long time, we'll be needing humanitarian help in many areas.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, there, Mr. Choi. Now to our next story. In Senegal, was it on Monday, tragedy struck, at the beach, when fun-seeking people were there to enjoy themselves. But this is what happens sometimes. Let's just take a look at this clip.
Such drownings usually occur during periods of hot weather in many West African countries, as residents cool off in the Atlantic Ocean. However, in a rare incident on Sunday, 8 people drowned along the same stretch of beach in the suburbs, according to a fire brigade spokesman.
Mohamed Lamin, I chose this story because we experience that sort of thing here all the time, particularly in the summer when students are on break, then they go to the beach. But every so often you hear of somebody has drowned, another person has drowned. But here in this particular incident, 8 people drowned in Senegal.
It's quite, remarkable. It's something I think Gambia can learn from. When you go to beaches, when you go to different areas, in the country here, beaches, how many, rescue operations would you see at the end of the day? Rescue services, what facilities or infrastructures are put in place to make sure that things like this will be contained or reduced, a bit. Sometimes it is difficult. But in the Gambia here, that is a problem. I think in terms of resources, Gambia really needs to invest, in the beaches to make sure that rescue operations are strengthened, strategies are put in place, the infrastructure, the training of personnel, which is something I do not see at the moment. And when events like this happen, governments need to learn from it. I think the Gambia should learn to invest in that area.
Absolutely. And well, at least come with a strategy where you will have lifeguards where people popularly go, even though that we know the one in Senegal, that particular beach, it is forbidden for people to swim there, but you know how human beings can be like. Sometimes we just do what we're not supposed to do, and then sometimes as well tragedy strikes. Thank you very much there, Mohamed Lamin. Now to our final story, really. This is a sports story. Upon the president's return, some of our sportsmen and women went to visit him, and there were a few goodies in store for them. Let's just take a look at this clip.
As a show of appreciation and motivation, $500,000 was presented to the under-19 volleyball team and $2.5 million to the under-20 national football team. Officials of the two sporting bodies were appreciative of the government's investment in sports, hence the achievement registered.
Absolutely. There incentives, I think about $12 million was shared, I think, between the under-20s, who got bronze in the competition, and the volleyball team. We just put it all together. But curiously, the senior Scorpions didn't go, qualified for AFCON for the very first time, and didn't go. And apparently they were, promised 11 million? What did you make of the whole thing?
For me, I think it's a problem that, maybe it's just emerging now, but there has been, a feeling that they've been bottling up for a long time when it comes to their condition, when it comes to how government treats them. Now that they are making significant progress with that amount, by boycotting, I think they're not happy with the amount that the government, through the president, is giving. And that should be a lesson that we should draw from it. These are people who are making significant progress now. The volleyball, the under-20, In terms of sports, Gambia is seeing some progress, but incentives also on the way. On the other hand, it's a privilege. But for me, I think what is the most important thing is how much investment would the government make, in sports, to make sure that this trend of progress that we've seen will continue. If that is done, I think will contribute a lot towards making sure that the players are motivated to play and then win trophies at the end of the day.
That's it. But what do you make of this? Because when I look at the statement, that at least that was published in the paper, on one line you'll get, well, this is not about the money. Yet the next line, they are not happy about the 11 million, really. It is not much. So in the end, it is about money. Yes, the national sentiment, the pride in playing for your country is there, but we've seen it particularly with African teams, always complaining to their governments, oh, we are not giving the bonuses that we deserved or were promised, and that sort of thing. So I found it curious that on one hand, they said, this is not about money, we are proud to play for the Gambia and all the rest of it, and yet, when the chips are down, it was really about money because they were not happy with the 11 million.
I haven't had any of the players who directly said that they are not happy, with that amount. I haven't had it. And what must be studied now is the contributing factor, towards that. We all are aware of the conditions of our, sportsmen and women. Lack of incentives will not really motivate them. There is lack of incentives, there's lack of motivation so long as sports in the Gambia is concerned. The fact that they are making progress, the government needs to improve on that area to better prepare them. If not, one can expect something worse than what happened.
Yes, but maybe just a bit to say on the part of the government as well, perhaps it was what the government had done in the past, which also paved the way, which also contributed to our qualifying to appear in the AFCON for the first time.
But is that enough is the question, maybe.
So we will see.
Whether that is enough.
We will see how it goes. Thank you very much, Mamadou Labin Choi, for your insights there. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, viewers, for watching the Weekend Review. Until next time, I'm Mamadou Bouch. Goodbye.